the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Whether he wants to go pro after the season ends. It's just kind of like rocking a hard place there.
And it's going to be complicated, but it's also, there's no governing body. So I just don't think any of it gets fixed. There's just no.
It's the NCAA.
Yeah.
That might be a good segue into the Falcons, who might be looking.
There is definitely no governing body that I am on board with here with the Atlanta Falcons. That being said, though, because it's the holiday season, we are recording this 6 days away from Christmas here. I want to go positive because this is going to be a pretty leaning negative pod. I'm just going to go ahead and guess out of the gate here. So, Max, what has gone right for the Falcons this season? I was thinking about this going into today. Was like, look, it's been rough. There's a lot of stuff to point to where you're like, this has been frustrating. But I'm like, what has actually been week over week? What have you looked at? And you're like, this is actually something that's gone right for the Atlanta Falcons in 2023.
First thing that jumps to mind is Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah.
I think that was the best move of the offseason in hindsight. I think he knows what he's doing. And I think, we're going to talk about whether the coach is going to stay or what's going to happen with that. But I think, they added talent on defense. I think Jesse Bates is a stud. Onyemata's had a great year, but Okuda's had a pretty good year, I think. But they're not flush with talent on defense. And he's turned that unit into granted, I think it's a little bit inflated by the schedule and the offenses they're playing, but it's a top 10 defense by most metrics right now. And if you had told any of us beginning of the year that even given the schedule, they'd have a top 10 defense, I think we would have been pretty darn surprised. And I'm glad that, we're going to stay in the positives, that Arthur Smith opted for a younger up and coming, first time defensive coordinator type, like a new mind, rather than, a lot of these coaches turn to retreads and some of the older guys, especially when they're sort of under fire. And he didn't, and he liked Nielsen and he stuck to his guns and a coach who can hire well. That's one of the I think one of the most important qualities in a coach. So reflects well on Arthur Smith. And we have a real defensive coordinator with maybe the best defense we've had since, over a decade, maybe, which is really a sad statement of affairs.
It was definitely one of the John Abraham year.
Yeah.
I was thinking 12, truthfully. Best one since 2012.
Who was on the 12 team? William Moore? Is that
John
Thomas
Abraham.
Dakoud?
That was John Abraham's last year.
Okay.
That was Willie Moe, Thomas Dakoud.
Yeah.
Those guys. They were kind of turnover happy, but stats said they did well.
I think this defense is a little bit of a paper tiger, and if they had to go against the Cowboys or something, or it's not going to happen. But any of those playoff teams, like the Lions, whatever, it might be exposed a little bit. Pass rush still isn't there, etc. But that's my positive.
I like it. Is that your positive here, Garrett Chapman?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely the biggest positive that you have to take away from this team this year is the defense has played really well. And that's so if you had come to me at the beginning of the season, you say, well, they're going to lose Grady Jarrett. They're going to lose AJ Terrell for some period of time. You're going to get banged up at the linebacker core. You're going to get beat up then I would have said, all right, throw it out the window. But that really hasn't been the case. They'd be a lot better if they had Grady Jarrett, don't get me wrong. But look, at the end of the day, it's they've been Ryan Nielsen is the biggest plus from this season. Max, you nailed it. He's been really one of the only positives for me because the defense as a whole, it's there may be a handful of guys on that defense that I think that it's all right, those guys are guys we can build around. We can keep those guys for the foreseeable future, AJ Terrell being chief among those. Grady Jarrett, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be the long-term guy anymore. I just don't know where we are as a defense anymore as far as that's concerned. And but at the end of the day, it's look, you were handed a bad hand on defense just based off of injuries alone, and you turned it into a number 8 overall scoring defense. And yes, it is because of the offenses that you've been playing. You've had the luxury of playing multiple rookie quarterbacks, multiple first-time starters. And at the end of the day, you weren't able to get it done when in crunch time on those final drives. But I know that we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But for the majority of football games, you've been the better unit. And I think that's definitely a plus that you can hang your hat on and say, hey, job well done. I think that if they actually had all their parts, we would be talking about a potential really, really good defense. And if they really did have all their parts, I think we could be talking about a playoff team, despite the fact that the offense really hasn't been able to do all that much and is far underachieved, especially in the rushing attack. We could talk about the quarterback position too. But look, the defense has done pretty well. And that's where I'm going to hang my hat.
It's never good though to like look at a coaching staff or like a team, and we both like we all agree that Ryan Nielsen has been a godsend. It's really masked a lot of the just egregious issues on offense, keeping the Falcons in games week over week. It's kind of crazy to think about, like if they just had like a 20th ish defensive mind here, like how bad things would be right now in Atlanta. But you just Arthur Smith is an offensive minded coach, and we're talking about the best positive to this team being who he hired to run his defense, which look, like Max said, that is something to his credit that he went out and he took a chance on a guy like Ryan Nielsen. Good hire, but you're still an offensive minded coach, and there is not really anything positive to glean from that side of the ball, I think.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.